Well, that was a great intro. Thanks, DJ HETUG. Welcome to the May 2024 Higher Education Tableau User Group meeting. We are super excited to have everyone here, especially because we have so many first timers. I don't know how many of you signed up at the TC24 conference, but we heard it was a lot of you, and we are super glad to have you join us. So for especially those who are new, but for everyone, we're going to follow a very similar agenda that we're used to. We're going to start with our announcements, followed by Meet a Community Member. We're welcoming Brad Coverdale from UMGC. And then we're going to have Tableau Conference Cubed or Tableau Conference plus takeaway contributions plus the community. Then Geoff, Koch, and Jennifer Heaton are going to talk about text analysis, the art and science of uncovering hidden gems in higher education. And if we have time, because it's a pretty packed agenda, we'll have our wrap up and chat. So before we get started, does anyone have any announcements that they would like to make? You can come off mute. You can share your announcement, any job openings, job postings that you want to share with the group. This is your time.
Hi, this is David Lishka. I'm currently working at SMU, but my contract will be ending in July. They've run out of funding, so if anybody has any positions, I have been following the open positions channel, but feel free to reach out to me if you have any positions. I'm located in DFW, but I might be open to some opportunities in Virginia or Florida. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And that's a great reminder that we do have a Higher Ed Tug Slack group where we have an open positions channel for anyone who is looking. And if you haven't already joined the Slack, I'm sure Roshni has shared the link a few times now. Any other announcements? Well, if nobody else has them, I will make one quick announcement. We are still letting you register for Analytics Day until June 3rd. So if you haven't already done that, please feel free to go to our website, find out some more, register if you haven't, and hopefully sometime early next week, we'll be sharing the agenda for Analytics Day. So that's super exciting. Stay tuned. All right, so Brad Coverdale is our Meet a Community member for this month. He comes to us from the University of Maryland Global Campus, where he is a senior business intelligence analyst. So Brad is a strategic data leader and, as I said, a senior business intelligence analyst. And he specializes in leveraging Tableau to enhance data-informed decision-making in education. With over 15 years of experience, Brad drives innovation and organizational transformation through advanced analytics and strategic planning. So Brad, thanks for being our Meet a Community member today. Would you like to start by telling us a little about yourself and describing your role and your team?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah.
So yes, as I said, I am a senior business intelligence analyst. I've been now with UMGC for almost 7 years. For those of you that are not familiar with Maryland Global Campus, we are part of the system, but we are all also separate from that. So it's still a state institution. It's a very large online institution, primarily for adult learner, for non-traditional learners, and for veterans. So with that, we run generally about 80,000 enrollment per year, and it is a lot, and that makes a lot of data. And when we are talking about my role, I support academic affairs, and with that, we say a lot of we have a lot of trying to figure out what we need to do to pull in to meaning of trying to, or excuse me, push out in terms of knowing when do we need to notify people for, especially for our leaders to know when to make decisions and to pull in to understand what insights do they need with that. So my role is to improve data maturity within leadership while also helping them to be able to tell their student success story. And so my direct team is one BI analyst who really comes in and also assigned to support academic affairs. She takes all of my designs, all of my analysis, and she makes them look very good. I will fully admit that I am very functional when it comes to Tableau. She's the one that makes it look actually presentable and well, in a lot of cases, real masterpieces. So then we also have on our team, we have our institutional research team is part of our analytics group. They're the ones that are handling all our internal requests, our external requests, and most of our tier one requests. We basically have a three-tiered system when it comes to our data requests. Our tier ones are anything dealing with lists, quick information. Our tier twos are your kind of quicker analysis, sometimes a little more in depth, where they're trying to understand more than just what's created within a specific table. And then when we have what is called our tier three is when we are partnering with our members of Helio Campus, who is our vendor for our external vendor for supporting large projects and data engineering. So makes for a very interesting dynamic when we serve probably over 300 staff, depending on all the different individuals that we are. So I'm in charge of supporting academic affairs, and then we have other members that are basically they have direct reports both to our VP of analytics and also to their various departments that they support within the institution.
Wow, that's a great team. So you've touched on this a little, but talk some more about what type of data you work with.
Sure. So a lot of our data that we're working with is our enrollment data. So that's what we're pulling for our persistence and retention. Our SIS is PeopleSoft. It's a very customized PeopleSoft, and so that makes it very interesting when it comes to bringing in information into our data warehouse and then bringing it out into Tableau. And then we have all of our classroom activity data is captured through D2L. And then and with that would also be our grades data.
And how do you use Tableau at work?
So a lot of our data is used actually via extracts that Helio Campus has put together for us, a lot of commonly used files. And even when I started at UMGC, that was the only thing I had access to were just the extracts. And then over time, as our needs increased and we needed to have more than just what Helio could provide for us, more than just the standard reports, and there were more customized reports coming, then they basically had to train more of us to be able to access more. So now I have direct access to all of the different extracts that we have. And even within this past year, I've finally been able to get access directly to our SQL tables to pull directly from PeopleSoft and other locations.
That does help.
Yes, dramatically.
So what is the favorite Tableau project that you've worked on?
So I have a love-hate relationship with our academic leader data repository. For anyone who's been following me on LinkedIn, you've noticed I've been kind of talking about it on and off for the past year. It's really been a big drive of mine for a long time of really grabbing a bunch of simplified reports that could be used as a single source of truth. And finally, our president last summer really pushed that he wanted that to be happening, and to the point that any senior leader should be able to meet with any of our portfolio directors and to be able to have conversations with them about what's going on with your student program, with your program health, and what's the student success story. So it took a lot of effort, a lot of going back and forth between us and our PDs to try and understand what can we do to simplify the information, but to make sure that it was the most important, impactful information as much as possible. And we had a lot of back and forth in terms of, well, what timeframes are we going to be reporting on? What else is this going to be used for? So this is now not only our single source of truth for having these kind of meetings, but for budgeting purposes, when doing any kind of portfolio management, for when doing our reports for for regional accreditation, any of our professional accreditation, they're all using these specific dashboards as our essential single source of truth.
That is great that you can have that much collaboration and feedback. So how long have you been using Tableau and how did you learn to use it?
So I kind of learned to use it through experimentation, I would say. I've been using it since 2018 when I came to UMGC. They were already starting to use Tableau. We had another homegrown system that was being used, but we were kind of phasing out of that, and I was part of that project to move all of those old queried reports over into Tableau and really just kind of got kind of fire hosed into that. And like I said, I really had very little access, and so it even took me almost 2 years before I could get a sandbox license. So I was really relying on what was available on the server, and then I would start getting these requests of, well, can you make this change, or can you add this extra filter? And I'm like, I'm not going to contact HelioCampus to make one more filter. Just give me access, and I'll add that filter real quick. It takes 5 minutes and go forward. And then that kind of just started expanding from there. And then it was more just kind of exposure as the projects grew.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Just one more filter. Just one more filter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is your favorite Tableau feature?
I would have to say I'm really been drawn into LOD. I've been really curious, like the whole concept of a lot of different things. And ChatGPT has helped me a ton. I will fully admit that. I'm like, okay, I want to understand how to do this, and it's like, oh, well, then you just need to use an LOD. I'm like, of course, I need to use an LOD for bringing in this external data that I want to be able to reference somewhere else. But yeah.
So in addition to LODs, then what would you like to learn more about?
Parameters. I'm still trying to understand the right way, wrong way, how to use them. Again, I think it's because a lot of our reports in the past didn't really use them, except for a couple of things. Like I know for one in particular, we have a parameter, for example, in our enrollment report for drop students, so that they're constantly filtered out. But if you don't know that, and that hasn't been communicated, then you don't even know that it's there unless you're looking for it. And so I'm still trying to better understand of what other access do we gain better insights to, especially as we're continuing to build the repository, because we don't just have dashboards with those. I forgot to mention that they are personalized, meaning that we have a mapping table that's already set for each of our program directors, so they don't even have to look for their program. They now look for their name based on a table that we already have set aside for their specialization, and then they can easily find that information. Well, all of those different relationships obviously take more complex understanding.
Yeah, definitely. So if you could go back in time, what is one thing you wish you could tell Tableau newbie you?
Don't wait to learn it. I did not realize just how much access I thought. I didn't really know about Tableau Public until actually I didn't even know about it until I started taking my classes at UMGC shortly after in my role. It was, I think, our third class. We had a class on Tableau, and I was like, oh, this is Tableau, and this is more of what I can use, and these are the things I have access to. And so, yeah, I would definitely say, definitely don't wait to learn it. And because there are so many free materials and stuff out there, and now with the rise of what we're already seeing with Pulse and Einstein, I'm very excited to see what the future is going to look like.
I could not agree more. It's going to be really exciting this year. Before we go into the next round, do you use Tableau outside of work? And if so, how?
So yes, I do use it. I've been working on trying to create a user-generated student data set. Again, using ChatGPT to create dummy data for educational purposes, so that others can also tell their own data story. And so that's kind of where that piece is going. I didn't really bring that one in because the visual, again, not the greatest for us to share right now, but it gets the job done for when people are ready to understand more about the features.
Yeah, a mock data set, so helpful. All right, so is there anything else you would like to share before we go to our next new round?
Sure. So, would love for everyone to follow me on LinkedIn. I have my podcast, as you see there in the link. It is not dead. I am bringing in more episodes. It's just taking a little bit more to get out than I had originally planned. I've been having a blast. It's called the Data Informed Campus, and it's for leaders and those who support them. So, would love to hear your feedback. Get ready for probably in the next couple of after I get back from air, I'll definitely be sharing my thoughts on different sessions that I've been in, particularly as they relate with analytics. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, have that. Plus, I'm starting my own strategy firm, BC Data Insights. So happy to help out.
Very cool. I will definitely check out the podcast. Always looking for a good one. All right. So we're starting a new thing this week. We're starting a dashboard spotlight. So we asked Brad to select a dashboard that he found interesting, intriguing, informational, inspirational, and share that with you. So this is the one that he selected, the Boeing Commercial Market Outlook for 2018 through 2037. So Brad, could you start by telling us about this dashboard, what it is you like about it?
Sure. So as I was looking, I was trying to find something that wasn't super flashy that I could get information really quickly. Because our teams and our program directors have so many different requirements, and we have over 1,000 courses that are going on. Everyone is trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to be spending my time in? What do I need to be really pinpointing? And so even after I created all of our different dashboards within the repository for our outcomes, I realized for those who have multiple courses, multiple programs, etc., it's still a lot of work for them to go through each and every one of those outcomes just to see what's going on. So what I loved about this is it's creating a summary. And so we're going to be using something very similar to that, where you can imagine instead of these different KPIs that Boeing has, you could see enrollment, you could see retention, you could see re-enrollment, you could see grades, course success, graduation, and then thinking about in terms of either then it's filterable by a program director, and they could see this is what's been going on within the last the average growth within or average change within the last 5 years for each of your courses. Imagine each of these now being colors and shapes so that you can quickly see, okay, that's the area I need to improve on. Enrollment's a problem. I know I need to be focusing on that. Or our course success is down compared to where it has been. That's where I need to be honing in on. And then they can click on that, similar to how the Boeing, now I realize having the interactive might work a little bit better, but having it so you could click in and see.
Ask and you shall be given.
Thanks. So like if, for example, if we were to click on, well, I was thinking in terms of like clicking on fleet and then, they might not have that interactive, but we can just grab the tab. Second one. Oh, that one will work too. Yeah, right. So imagine like further detail about these different dashboards. So that was kind of where I was really drawn to this. I think it has a lot of potential. This particular structure won't work for us because, again, we're planning on having a ton of different courses that people can draw on from. But this gives us kind of an idea as well. We also have what we call our program scorecard, which is kind of our at a glance kind of thing. So I could easily see this kind of design being used for that.
So you pretty much answered the next question, which is why do you think it's worth sharing and spotlighting this? But is there anything else you wanted to say about that before we move on?
No, like I said, I think it's very clean. I think it's really good for giving your users the power to let them drive. And that's really kind of where we want to make sure we're at, especially with these self-service kind of pieces. We want them to be able to find that information, feel confident in that information, and then they can make sure that they feel not only confident in after having a ton of training, but it's data they understand, it's data they can communicate with, and then that helps them to when communicating their story with senior leaders, because we have across the whole spectrum. I have those that are the give me just the canned report. That's all. Just tell me what I have to be responsible for. And I have others that are like, give me the data source. I want to play. And it's like, well, that's great, but I still need you to, we're trying to keep things uniform. Let's just stay here. You can kind of explore that elsewhere.
So how has this dashboard inspired you, and what have you learned from it to apply to your own work?
I like the spacing. I like the breakouts. I definitely see very good value in terms of, again, the different images. It makes it very quick and easy to see. And so when we are creating our splash page, for example, I want to make sure that when our splash page, being where everything is housed, we basically have three different quadrants, or that were three different parts. A quadrant would have to be four. That we are thinking about, where we have all of our historic data, we have our what we call our look back, meaning different dashboards that are related to last session, and then current state. So then that gives more of a direction, because we've got over 300 dashboards that have been generated within our system within the last 10 years. And most of those are academic related. And we've tried pruning out some of the commonly, those haven't been used that much, but I mean, there's still quite a bit, so that as we're going back and revamping, keeping all of these ideas in mind as we move forward.
And one other thing I noticed about this dashboard is that it uses the story feature in Tableau. Is that something you all use in your office department?
We are moving in that direction. It's more of trying to figure out, again, what can we do and how do we set it up so that it's the quickest, the best understanding for all of our users. So I've not yet, but that is definitely something that's kind of on our horizon.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up our Meet a Community Member for the month?
No, this has been fantastic. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for being willing to participate. We really appreciate it. If anyone else in your office would like to be a member, or if anybody else on this TUG meeting would like to be a Meet a Community Member in the future, let us know. We have a form you can fill out to nominate yourself or someone else. And there's the link. All right. Well, I will turn it over to Roshni for our next section.
And our next section is actually looking back a little bit. It's looking back at Tableau Conference 2024, which just finished. It feels like days ago, but really it was almost 3 weeks ago. And actually, show of hands, use your reactions or whatever the Zoom chat stuff is. Like, who went to TC? I see. Oh, okay. Hold on. The numbers are going up now. So we had at least a couple dozen folks who went to TC. Who watched TC on Salesforce Plus? So if you don't know, Salesforce Plus is where all the recordings of, or at least of the sessions that were recorded, including like the keynote and devs on stage and Iron Viz, that's where all of those live. So we've got probably about a couple dozen, give or take, in both categories. So that's actually a good number. It ended up, so just some background of what Tableau Conference is. It's not like any other software conference or any other higher ed conference that you'll ever go to. It's really a place with a bunch of people who love data and love Tableau. We've got a few of our folks highlighted right here, including Preeti and Lisa. And there's probably some other folks who I'm just not seeing now, who are going to be talking to us a little bit about their experiences today. But yeah, so there were 6,000 people, 6,000 Tableau folks. And And apparently it's also where I did some good kidnapping of people into this higher ed Tableau user group. There's this competition called Iron Viz. It's like Iron Chef, where you've got 20 minutes to create a viz on a data set. Spoiler, the data set is IMDb TV data, which is really, really cool. And these three folks, Jessica, Chris, and Pata, they all did some magic with this massive data set in 20 minutes, building a dashboard from start to finish. And yeah, the IMDb TV data is going to be out later this summer or fall, I believe. Sort of an extension of the IMDb data plus movies contest or challenge that is currently out there. There are, like I mentioned before, there are a lot of sessions that are out there on Salesforce Plus. Here's a handful that we wanted to highlight, but we have not seen, like between Ginny, me, and Andrew, we have not seen all of these sessions. These are some of the ones that we did see though, or were interested in seeing, including the Tableau tip battle. I feel like Lisa had something to do with that one. At the speed of Iron Viz. Again, that Lisa lady. One of my favorite Fleur-Ridge twins and the other Fleur-Ridge twin also did a how to do cool stuff in Tableau. The design dashboards for the mind's eye was kind of a cool, data culture trio. Sorry, I did not highlight that, Russ. I'm sorry. Design dashboards for the mind's eye was from Steve Francaneri, who is a researcher at a university researcher, talking about all of the research that his team and others have done in terms of how do users or people actually see a data visualization. It has some really great tips on pre-attentive attributes and using making decisions about colors and how you lay out your data. So yeah. There's a whole lot of sessions out there on Salesforce Plus. Again, I'm sorry I didn't highlight all of the good ones because I've only seen a handful of them. But we encourage you to watch these. If there's any that you think would be great to see live in person, let us know. And there is a QR code. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get the link behind the QR code, so we won't be able to share that. But if someone else has gotten that link and wants to share it in the chat, it'd be much appreciated. So there was a whole lot of stuff that happened there. A lot of people learned a lot of really cool things. So we're going to actually start by having folks share some of the things that we've learned, starting with Ginny. Hey, she's back.
I'm back. So I went to this fabulous hands-on training session for Tableau Prep. What I learned was how to use a lot of the new features that I haven't really gotten a chance to, get in there and try out yet. So what I'm most excited to try is the new, what is it called? New rows. Tableau Prep will now create new rows, and I'm going to use this to build out a dynamic date scaffold for all of the point in time dashboards that I have to update regularly. So as long as you have a start date and an end date, Tableau Prep will generate rows for all the dates in between those. And so there's no more having to maintain this extra Excel spreadsheet with the dates, for all of the different semesters. So that is the one I'm most excited about. But I also learned a few really simple things that I hadn't already been aware of, and they kind of blew my mind. So one thing I learned was that you should always apply as many filters as possible in your input step, and you can utilize a parameter if needed. Like if I'm going to run the same prep flow time and time again, I'm going to run it for a different semester every time. I can put that in a parameter in the input step, and applying filters there means that you are working with less data throughout the whole prep flow, and it really improves the functionality. And then in the same kind of in the same, I can't think of the word. So another way to improve performance is to do cross database joins at the end of the flow. So filters at the beginning, cross database joins at the end. And then in between, if you're working on doing a lot of calculations and stuff that you're going to do, use the pause button. I never use the pause button in Tableau Prep. but it keeps it from refreshing every single time that you create a new calculation. And then there's also this new built-in feature that identifies your duplicate rows. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to want to filter them out, but at least it creates some sort of flag that lets you know this is a duplicate row or it's not. And then, so the default is for Tableau Prep to identify duplicate rows across all of the fields that you have in that step. But you don't have to use all the fields in the step. Like if you only wanted to say, identify duplicate rows for students in a certain major or something, you could pre-select the fields that you want to use to identify if it's a duplicate row, and just hold down Control and click all the fields you want, and then click identify duplicate rows based on those rows only. So that's a nice little piece that I didn't know about. All of those were really exciting for me.
Cool, thanks. Up next is Matt Beeman from UNC Chapel Hill, who, by the way, also went to one of the boot camps afterwards. So I'm hoping that you share a little bit about that too. Welcome, Matt.
Everybody can hear me, right? Yes?
Yes, you're good.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I've been having audio issues with this laptop recently. Just want to make sure. So I will say my boss kind of made me go to the boot camp afterwards, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it was my first Tableau conference, actually my first work conference at all. So I said, go big or go home, go all the way across the country to go to the conference. One, San Diego is beautiful, fantastic timing to get that, and I think the weather was exactly the same every day. Two, since it's going to be there next year, I will say, make sure you're ready to walk. I think I did 12,000 steps on Monday. It was definitely over 10,000. My little app said I walked 7 miles going back and forth in the convention center. So be ready to go with that. But yeah, I actually pulled up my list here of some highlights for me. Of course, the very first session I picked, I just went in and this guy blew my mind. This was Dan Chiswick. Unfortunately, this is not available in Salesforce Plus, but he was using parameter actions in order to play games. And I know Ginny didn't mention she did a session, which I didn't know she was the presenter until afterwards, but she did a session on how to gamify Tableau. So I don't know if she can make that available to anybody, but using parameters for advanced calculations, he called them recursive parameters, basically using parameters to do things like counters, or he did a Fibonacci sequence. He would just click and it could generate a Fibonacci sequence using parameters, just using separate calculations. The other one, which I will say, you can follow this lady on LinkedIn. She posted some of her stuff. Lori Rugamer. She's with a company called Slalom Consulting, but she's very active on LinkedIn in the data community. Her sessions were absolutely fantastic to me. We're kind of a fledgling little group. We've shifted over to Tableau about 2 years ago as a university, but I think we have 8 different groups within the university now that are running their own Tableau shops. We don't have a consistent so we have just gone from a manager and me to a manager, me, and a junior developer. So Lori Rugamer talked a lot about frameworks for developing your Tableau teams, what kind of assets and skills are needed for each person on the team. And I would think it was really great. So if you're leading a team of any number of people, I would definitely suggest that. I do have a recording. If you can't find it online, I can send it to you. And then the other one was the key was Alex Wallachek. I think that's right. His session was called Think Like a Hacker, which was, again, not available on Salesforce Plus, unfortunately. But he really talked about developing data sources efficiently. And he's the one thing stuck with me. He said, if you do something once, fine. If you have to do it again, build a system for when you have to do it the third time. So it says, if you're doing, don't duplicate the same massive set of work over and over again. So he talked a little bit about prep and data sources and how you set those up to where you're not duplicating a lot of the hard data data engineering work. So and as I mentioned, I stayed the extra 2 days, the full week in San Diego for the visual analytics boot camp. And it was 2 days on, as mentioned before, pre-attentive attributes, how people process the visual parts of visual, the visual parts of visualizations, color, size, how brain makes associations between different things. What the pre-attentive attributes, I think, is something that everybody should look up. It's what the brain processes about the thing before the brain even starts to kick in. The brain sees things in 2 milliseconds before the active thought process even starts. So things about color and size can really make a difference in your visualization. So so it was 2 days on good visualizations. And the one thing that was really great about that is they gave us these different sessions on. They gave us bad dashboards and said, or bad visualizations, and said, how would you improve this based on what we just talked about? How would you improve this based on color or size or too much information processing, things of that nature. I was in the same thing that Ginny just mentioned about with Tableau Prep, which was amazing. I'm a huge fan of Tableau Prep as well. And then obviously got to meet Ginny and Roshni in person at the HETUG meetup, which was excellent. And a couple other people I recognize. I met Michael, I believe, Michael Goodnight. Yep, he met him. We had a little conversation and kind of shared some common struggles and things, but it was great. So.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I had trouble finding my mute button. It sounds like you got a whole lot out of your week in San Diego, which is great.
Yeah,
all right.
I also do recommend the SEAL tour, the amphibious boat tour. It's really awesome. So
that's got nothing compared to Boston's duck boats. Just throwing that out there.
Basically the same thing, but yeah, you get to go out and see the sea lions and get a great history tour of the San Diego area as well.
And we've got another duck boats, our superior. All right, up next from the other side of North Carolina, we've got Jordan Bullington Miller from UNC Charlotte.
Hi, friends. This was my first Tableau conference. These higher ed budgets, man, we were struggling. So this was the first time that I got to make this trip. I was the only one from my institution. So I was telling Ginny, my big takeaway is a little bit more conceptual. Now, I learned so many technical things. I was taking all of the notes, but the biggest takeaway for me is that, I've been in Tableau for a little over 2 years now, and a challenge that I have is that building dashboards for my institutions, there's a lot of creative constraints. I have to use, very specific brand colors. I have very specific fonts that I can use, not universal design friendly fonts, but fonts that I'm supposed to use. And there are just a lot of limitations there. The other piece is that while what we're visualizing varies, the data is very similar. And so what that means is that I'm not really getting the space and the time to flex and learn and grow. And so then, yeah, that style guide, man, oh, God, for another discussion. But, I went to all these sessions that talked about the power of visualizing passion projects and, personal hobbies and personal data. And I was so inspired. I went back to my hotel room late at night and just started visualizing like data that I had about my experiences and started to build things that, I could use different colors. Like I could be creative and I could try to figure out how to do things that I've never had the space for at UNC Charlotte. Feel very lucky to be given, the opportunity to go to the conference, but since I have returned, I have been practicing on personal data and passion projects just really flexing that muscle and really embracing what Tableau can do even beyond my professional context. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think the biggest takeaway is that there's so much more I can do. And I just needed this nudge to remind me that, like, just to go and be inspired. So I have been on Tableau Public, getting inspired and starting to build every day. So that is my big, quick takeaway.
Great, thank you. We're gonna go a little bit out of order next. Ashley Morris from Harvard Med School, who is a fan of the duck boats, is up next.
Thanks, Roshni. Hi, everybody. Yes, the duck boats, I will stand by, are superior, and knock on wood, we may be having another duck boat parade come June if the Celtics keep up their great performance around here. This was my second Tableau conference. I went last year for the first time, and this year I actually got to bring some colleagues, which was really great. So similar to Jordan, we are working very much within the Harvard colors, brand, and everything, but one of the sessions one of my interns actually went to was on a style guide and how to create a style guide and documentation. So she's working on that. But for me personally, one of my favorite sessions was Data as a Team Sport, led by Robbie. It was a great session on both how to use data, how they use data, but then also how to hire the right people for the job. So it gave me a lot of confidence kind of in the process I'm doing with a take-home exam and things like that to make sure that we're hiring the right folks. And then also really that the future of data is having those knowledge centers. So Matt kind of talked about how they're a little disparate and how people are doing different things, and that's okay. And so that's definitely something that we are taking back. And I think, like other people said, I got to meet Roshni and Ginny in person at the meetup, which was absolutely fantastic. And really getting to put faces to names is always a huge bonus of Tableau conference every year. And I think for those of you who have interns coming on, I actually use a lot of those Salesforce Plus videos as trainings. So something to consider if there's sessions on like the how to do cool stuff in Tableau, tips and tricks. Those are all great videos to have people kind of watch and they can learn from later on. So that was my takeaway, and already looking forward to San Diego next year.
Woohoo, San Diego. All right, Russ from University of South Alabama up next. Also, I'm just going to put a plug out there. Russ is a Tableau student ambassador.
Oh, thank you. Student ambassador and the co-lead of the Gulf Coast HETUG. So that was the one of the things that I wanted to focus on. This is the community share segment, and that was really the thing that was my takeaway, was to the community here. I was expecting the exact opposite in that in previous years, especially after the pandemic, they had one camera set up in one room. And if you're watching online, you could see whatever was in that room. And if you didn't like it, you're out of luck. You had to just wait until the next hour rolled around. It's just like TV before basic cable. I wanted to really go because I wanted to get more. I just loved it so much. I wanted to get more of this information, more of these classes, attend more of these sessions. Now, with 60% of them being on Tableau Salesforce Plus, I have been watching a lot of those. I still have a lot more to go through. But the thing that really just I fell in love with was the community. There's so many great people, so many things you can learn from meeting up with people. There was the university meetup. There was the healthcare meetup. There was a meetup for public sector. So many different things, just meeting people, finding out what they're doing at their institution, how they're doing it. And just the professional networking was just amazing. This is my first Tableau conference. I didn't exactly know what to anticipate. It was actually my first technical conference of any kind, because I previously worked in a children's hospital. Now I work at the university, so everything's been healthcare focused or educational focused. This was my first tech conference to actually be a part of, and it again, someone previously said, "Go big," or I think it was Matt, "Go big, go home." That was very much my takeaway from it. It was just awe-inspiring. I got so many things that I want to try coming back from this. First thing I did with the Gulf Coast HETUG was present all the things in the keynote, and had a big discussion about all the cool things coming up with AI and the Einstein, all the cool sentiment analysis, all the fun things that are going to be looking forward to in the software. But the majority of my time, honestly, has been on LinkedIn, connecting with all these people, either being very happy to meet some of you in real life that I've been working with for a while, or forging new connections with people I had not previously encountered until stumbling across them in a common interest meetup at TC.
You know, Russ, you just stole all of what I was going to say about TC. That's all right. That's all right. You probably did it better than I did, or I would. All right. So up next, Michael Goodnight from University of Alberta. That's in Canada for those of you who are like, Alberta, where's that?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess the hard part of being right in the middle of the community share is trying to come up with something new that if someone hasn't said and agreed on everything. I mean, we deal with a lot of the same constraints of using templates, so we kind of got to develop some of it on our side. But yeah, no, I'd like to just again reiterate the community feels probably one of the best things from the Tableau conference. This was my second one. My first one was in 2019. And then, yeah, the pandemic, and then got to go again this year. So if you are able to attend, the community is, I think, hands down the best part about the conference. It leads to great things like this group here and meeting everyone and kind of getting inspired going to the conference and taking back what you can to look to improve what you have at your institution or business. But I guess in particular, some of the best parts, some of the best sessions that I've been to were a lot of the same dashboard documentation to kind of help streamline processes within our unit to kind of help make the, I guess, not boring things easier. But also some of the other ones, like one of my favorite one was building out a center of excellence. Which kind of just talked about, building those data champions around your business or area to kind of help, at least for us, like we're a centralized unit where we do a lot of student reporting, finance reporting, research reporting, special initiative projects, and a whole bunch of different kinds using Tableau and data in general, and looking to build out those centers, data champions around the faculties or other centralized units. And I think that one was definitely one of my favorites, kind of gave you a good guide to how to do it and look to use the Tableau blueprint free assessment. But yeah, it overall, I walk away from my second conference thinking about how great it was to meet everybody and how fun it is to look at all the new tech. So one of our big things that we looked when we went there was to look at Tableau Cloud. We're currently on server and what it could do for us at the institution. So looking into fun features like Tableau Pulse, Einstein Copilot, if that's an option for us in the future. But essentially trying to look at what's available, what's upcoming, and look to incorporate it and try to push that innovation within the institution. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mike. All right, or Teshakur. There we go. Up next, Sam Homier, who is from San Bernardino Valley College, probably one of the few who had to travel the least to get to TC. She's also a co-lead for the CCC TUG, that's California Community Colleges TUG. So Sam, take it away.
Thanks, Roshni. Again, like echoing Michael, it's really hard to come up with something new to say because everything has kind of been said now. But I did get to meet a lot of these people here. Funny enough, I actually met Russ, we sat next to each other on the bus on the way back from the Tableau user group leader party, not even in the higher education meetup. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, so in addition to what has already been said, I think my favorite part of it was learning about identifying duplicate rows in Tableau prep, to be honest, because I had so many aggregate steps before trying to get rid of those duplicate steps. So that was really nice to see. Another one was actually a hands-on training that I went to that doesn't really apply to my work, but gave me a lot of ideas for like personal dashboards that I could build. So it was called Getting Busy with It, Advanced Visualizations. And it was just about building different types of charts that aren't like embedded into Tableau, right? And ways of kind of manipulating Tableau to build something new, like a lollipop chart or those dumbbell charts that you see, right? So that was my favorite part of it. But yeah, thank you.
Cool, thanks, Sam. So up next is Preeti Lodha from the University of Massachusetts President's Office, who is a Tableau Public TUG co-lead and has also recently taken on the role of Boston TUG co-lead. Take it away, Preeti.
Thank you, Roshni. I would like to share a screen if that is possible.
Try it and see what happens.
Try and see, right. Oh, it's sharing. Do you all see the beautiful image I have up on screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. So I wanted to bring this image as we all were talking about how amazing the Tableau community is, because you will see in this picture, they are people from all over the world. It's not just one country being represented. You have people from Australia, from India, from US, and all different backgrounds. So this is what Data Fam is all about. It's so many different people, very readily open to sharing their thoughts and all the ideas that we have. This time for me, it was a different experience because I went in as a speaker. I got to speak with Kimberly Scott not once, but twice. And the topic of my conversation was data makeover, how to build award-winning visualizations, because Kimberly and I have some awards under our belt for the visualizations that we have built. It was special because there were people, it was the last session of the last day, and to see people still come to your session is very humbling that people got to hear what you got to say. The fun thing that I saw Lisa put in the chat was, yes, we won a Visi. Visi is this community Tableau award that is given out in various categories. We won the Tug of the Year award with the Tableau newbie user group. And this is our leadership getting the award. So I do implore you all, if you love higher education TUG, when this nominations comes around, do nominate your TUG, because it is really empowering to the people who put these TUGs together and bring all these speakers and do all the work behind it. So coming back to the takeaway, I think I did see the dashboard documentation being one of the key points that was being talked, right? So this is what I am going to implore. I have seen this, but having put it together in one screen where they talked about good 7 or 8 Tableau documentation that could be done, I thought this was especially helpful from the developer's perspective, because we get handed over dashboards and workbooks, right, all the time, right? So implementing these quick documentation steps where you add descriptions to your dimensions so that people know what that dimension means, having comments to your calculations, and color coding so that they know that these set of KPIs or these set of web charts are grouped in. And the best part that I liked, which I, having used Tableau for good more than 6 years, didn't know, was you can get the entire description of your sheet up here, and you can use this to build your dashboard documentation. So this becomes an official documentation. So if you go to each sheet that is in your dashboard, grab this information and put it in a sheet out there, it becomes a dashboard documentation. Easy way to go about this is I think you hit Control E and it brings up that sheet description, and that could be a documentation that you could share. So, yep, exciting stuff. I'm going to stop my share there.
Awesome. Thank you, Preeti. And then last but not least is former Iron Viz, actually, well, once an Iron Viz winner, always an Iron Viz winner, and Tableau visionary Lisa Truscott, and also co-lead of the CCC Tableau user group.
Yeah, so I was super excited until Preeti shared her last thing, because I thought I have one thing that no one has mentioned, and it was Control E, and then Preeti stole it. So I will just say that I want to echo everything that everyone has said. I think the only session that that hasn't been mentioned that I wanted to bring up, it is on Salesforce Plus, is Kevin Wees. His is all about creating buttons and toggles in dashboards using parameter actions, which, as many of you know, I really like a parameter action. I will also say I haven't done it yet, but coming back from the conference, I wanted to get back into Workout Wednesday. It's a community project that I haven't spent a ton of time with. I've done a few, but I feel like I was just reminded that it's a great place to really kind of flex some of those muscles that you don't at work, kind of like Jordan was talking about earlier. You know, you're kind of doing the same stuff at work. And so doing a project like Workout Wednesday, where they give you a specific task and you can and see if you can do it, is something that I'd like to get back into doing. And I thought there was one more thing, but maybe I forgot it. I think that was it. I will also say we are just migrating to Tableau Cloud. And so I'm excited for Pulse. I feel like it's one of those things that I've known is coming out, and I know that it's here and people are using it, but then actually seeing and saying, okay, it's part of Tableau Cloud. We have cloud now, we can use it. So I'm excited to kind of dive into that and see kind of what it's capable of and how we can use it. I think it'll be really cool to use, especially during enrollment cycles when people need kind of those daily student head counts and enrollment figures. So I think it's going to be an exciting thing to dive into.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. So you may have noticed we skipped a few people on this list because, technical issues and whatnot. So we've got a sub in for this one.
So since Matt was so kind to mention it, there was a session that I co-presented on building games in Tableau. And at the end of the session, we announced that we are launching a new challenge, which is build and play games on Tableau. So the challenge runs through June 30th. And it's really simple. All you have to do is build a game, publish it to Tableau Public, make it downloadable, and then submit the URL to Doc Elder, and his email address is right here. And then at the end of June, he and I are going to get together and use a rubric to score the games, and the best new or redone game will win some swag. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. It should be a lot of fun. And once that recording is available, because we did this presentation again for the University Teaching and Learning TUG, we'll get that link shared out on the Slack group. So again, if you haven't already joined Slack, why not get on it?
Seriously, join the Slack, guys. Oh, wait, hold on. And I'm going to give you a second to scan this QR code. All right, while we wait for folks to get their cameras out, that little guy there in the sticker form, his name is Dash. He was designed, I want to say, by Brian Moore. And Brian gave Doc Elder permission to steal Dash, and now Dash is the mascot for Let's Play Games. So there we go. People mentioned a whole bunch of things that were new. I will let you guys take a screenshot of this. It's also going to be in the recording, but we're not going to go through it in any real detail. There's some cool things like Tableau Desktop Public Edition lets you save files, Viz extensions, which I think is what Sam mentioned about being able to build your own visualizations in an easy way. That's coming soon, and there's already some out there. Shared dimensions, the meatball, Teams integration is coming. I'm going to go back to community. Community, for me, this is my second in-person TC. My first one, I went heads down into hands-on trainings, the all-day boot camps, whatever they called them at that point. And I was like, learning. But what really struck me about TC this year was the community. We had quite a few meetups. The education and public sector ones had a whole lot of education folks in them. And just generally, there are all sorts of opportunities to meet people. And so it was a great experience. So I went in like Mellow Dinosaur. I don't know if you see him here on the seesaw. I went in thinking, yeah, I'm gonna data a bit. But what ended up happening is I met a whole bunch of people. Flex met Vizzy here from Infotopics. So it started out, I think, thought of TC as a place for data, and it was a place for data, but it was also a place for the data fam. So this is more of the data fam. Few of the people who spoke here are in this picture. And last but not least, oh yes, Lisa's putting this in the Slack or in the chat, and I'm gonna say it out loud. Hands-on sessions for those who attended, they are available through, I think you have to log into your TC account. If you attended, they're available through June 14th if you want to do them or download all the data. If you missed a session, if you didn't go to TC, if there's something that you went to TC, but the session you wanted to see or share with folks in your organization is not available through Salesforce Plus, we can always do a TC Encore. We can always ask speakers to come to HETUG or any of the other tugs that you saw people, sharing about. So if you want someone to come to HETUG to talk about a session you missed, fill out the present at HETUG form, and we will see what we can do about getting folks to, present to us at 2 in the morning their time. Alex is already on my list, so He's from New Zealand. He was very excited about a New Zealand reference in the devs on stage or keynote. So if you hear one really loud cheer, that was him. Uh, so up next, I'm going to pass this over to Andrew.
Hello, everybody. That was a lot of great tips and actually another good example of community. So well done to everybody who was involved. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the presentation on text analysis, the art and science of uncovering hidden gems in higher education. Our speakers for this one are Geoff Koch, who prides himself on being a cross-functional analytics leader with a focus on people, process, and data. Geoff's got a background in econometrics and statistical analysis and loves connecting with other presenters via presentations, group sessions. He's been using Tableau for over 10 years and is currently the co-organizer of the Higher Education Power BI user group, as well as a separate, smaller community group called Pick Your Passion. He lives in Charlestown, West Virginia, with his wife, 2 children, and 2 dogs. When he's not diving into data, he enjoys cooking new recipes and coaching or practicing baseball, basketball, and soccer with the family. Jennifer Heaton brings a background in data visualization, data modeling, and business intelligence reporting. She has experience with a range of BI tools, including Tableau, Power BI, SQL, SAS, SPSS, and R. While actively expanding her expertise in those areas, she also enjoys developing and designing SharePoint sites, an area where she continues to grow and apply her knowledge. Beyond her professional life, Jennifer enjoys gardening, particularly growing fresh food and microgreens. She also enjoys yoga and spending time in nature. Geoff and Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you from here.
All righty, thank you. I have about 20 minutes, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to dive into this thing. So apologies, I may be a bit abbreviated, so that way I can make sure we can get through everything. Is everybody seeing my screen correctly?
Yep, you're good.
I know we're having issues. Okay, cool. All right, so hey, we're from the University of Miami. We have water here, so I'm going to go to the next slide. A little bit about us. We were just recently, inducted into the AAU. We have about 19,000, around 20,000 total enrollment on our campus, largely in person. We don't really have a huge online presence, but we do have a largely decentralized campus as well. So that'll come into play when we talk about what we're going to be going over. All right, so the project we're going to be going over is essential to our course evaluation analysis. Previous to my arrival, there wasn't really a lot of text analytics done to our course evaluations. And so I saw that and said, oh, we're going to change that right now. And we went ahead and we did it. So we're going to show you later on exactly what we did, but just to give you a little bit of a taste here, the analysis was kind of furtive in nature. Nobody really knew about it. So we wanted to make it a little more haughty. We wanted to loudly announce, hey, we have the ability to analyze our text data, and here's how we're going to do it. And we presented it in Tableau. So the first things first, we utilized these packages in R. So R was used for a lot of the data prep and a lot of the analytical workflows initially. So we use sentiment error, or R, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Tidy text, which is fantastic if you haven't used it before. UD pipe for some of the part of speech tagging and some of our own internal departmental specific functions. We use Tableau to present the analysis and have the interaction layer there. And then it also resulted in a consistent streamlined survey. All right, so I'm going to go through here real quickly. Sentiment analysis, we kept it somewhat basic. And what I was going to do is just show you some examples right here. So this is how we scored ours. And I put some 3 example responses here so you can see how it's scored at a very nascent way. So I find joy when I open Tableau and can explore data. The HETUG meetings are like hot soup for my soul, needed in every way. So how is that scored? Well, that's scored relatively positively. So you can see we broke it down via the different functions here. So the sentiment function breaks each sentence down, then scores each one. So you see the first one, it scored at 0.226, which is quite positive. Then the other one, I guess it couldn't interpret that hot soup for my soul was intended to be positive, but it's still slightly positive, not as positive as the first one. Review 2, though, however, the guy presenting this session is annoying, little self-deprecation right there. And then the other presenter is a breath of fresh air, though. So that'll be Jen. So the first sentence here is scored as negative, which is what we were going for. The second sentence is positive, which is what we were going for there. And then the third one is this survey data. That has no, it's neutral sentiment. That's neither good nor bad. So we ended up using this function called the sentiment by from the sentiment R package, which attempts to aggregate the sentences together to give you one score per response, right? So depending on what your need is, you might want to break it down into individual sentences and score each one and then surface your most negative sentences. But that really doesn't provide a lot of context there. So we decided to go with sentiment by. And I do apologize. I'm going quickly, but we're happy to talk about any of this after this if you want to talk through what we've done. I want to get to the demo though. So we also used TF-IDF scores. So if anybody's familiar with this, you'll know why we're using them. But essentially what a TF-IDF score is it surfaces important terms or phrases, depending on what your token length is, to the top. So how is it calculated? Well, we look at the word counts per document. So a document in this case would be a certain type of grouping. If you think of it in terms of, I saw on the chat, there was a Harry Potter spell, Expelliarmus, that was put in there. So I'll use Harry Potter as the example from here on out. So if you figure there's 7 books, each one of those books is a document, right? So we want to get the word counts per book, along with the total number of words in each book to determine the word frequency. So if the word Harry was used 150 times out of 20,000 words, you do 150 minus or divided by 20,000, that would be your word frequency. So your term frequencies, TF. Then we attain the inverse document frequency of the term. So that is the natural log of the number of documents divided by the number of documents containing that term. And then we multiply the two together, and that's what we get. So I know I'm going fast, but let me give you an example of exactly what that means and how we used it. All right, so I mentioned Harry Potter on purpose. This is something I did for a sort of a passion project. Growing up, big fan of Harry Potter, may still be a big fan of Harry Potter, but I wanted to look at the TF-IDF scores of each word within each book. So I could see, okay, does this really work? And it seems to work. Quirrell has the highest score in the first book, Lockhart, Lupin, and it keeps going on. So if you're familiar with the stories, you understand sort of what's happening here. These words are mentioned more in these books than others for a specific canonical reason there. But it surfaces, okay, this is important to this story or this document in this case for a reason. So it doesn't give you the context or the why, but it helps surface some of those important terms for the specific document. And more of a business reason, let me share our example here. Jen will take it over after here to walk you through the dashboard and some of our techniques. But what Jen was able to do was surface the TF-IDF calculation in a dynamic fashion. So what she ended up doing was creating this group by parameter. And by the way, all the data you'll see here was generated by ChatGPT. So it's sort of our demo. We have this uploaded, or Jen has this uploaded on her Tableau public. She'll talk about that a little more. So you're welcome to explore it, but just know that nothing confidential is being shared here. All right, so if we look here, we're grouping it by school or college, right? So this happens to be the business school, the very bland business school. And then the word here is Tableau, and you can see that occurred 33 times out of 1364. So your term frequency there is about 2.4%, okay? 2.4% of the words are Tableau. It occurs in one document or one grouping, business school, and there are 6 of those. So when you multiply those two together, the TF-IDF is 0.04. By itself, this score doesn't really mean much. It really comes into play when it comes into the ranking, right? In the order of magnitude here. So it's mentioned a lot more than, say, the second most popular or most important word, marketing, right, within business school. One thing to why this makes this so powerful is our users can go in and select, okay, what's important to, say, a specific course? And let this load. Say, okay, biology is important to this course. It makes a lot of sense. It's advanced molecular biology. But if we scroll down, you can see different courses. What we can use this for in terms of the analysis piece is to really surface on phrases that are used most often within certain groupings. So again, the users can change the grouping to their heart's content. But what actually happened in the real world with our real data was Tableau was the most important word from a TF-IDF standpoint for our Miami Herbert Business School. And it was because a lot of students were bringing up, hey, I love learning Tableau in this particular course. And so to me, if I was designing a course, I would look at these words and say, okay, what's working, what's not working? And it allows you to mine that text efficiently. So It was great. I love Tableau, so it was kind of funny to see Tableau being the most important word actually in the real world for our courses, because that was mentioned within the business school, but not necessarily other schools. Maybe some other schools who use Tableau that utilize some visualization or statistical techniques. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to pass this over to Jen so she can walk through some of the demos for the actual dashboard that she built and walk through some of those techniques. Okay. Jen, are you ready?
Yeah, I think so. I'm working on sharing my screen. Okay, I should be sharing my screen now.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is going to walk you through, there are basically two tabs to this dashboard. The first dashboard looks at these student comments to the end of course evaluations from using the lens of sentiment analysis, or these average sentiment scores. And so what we're doing, you probably really have noticed, we've got one graph here on the left-hand side of the page. And so this was done intentionally. So we're encouraging our users to explore these average sentiment scores at various levels of this hierarchy. So users can explore these average sentiment scores by school or college. They can look at these scores at the department level, or even down to the course level. And let me see if I can expand this out. And so these average sentiment scores, once we expand them at the level of hierarchy that we're interested in looking at them, then we can start to decide how we are going to explore the student comments. So for instance, here we have the business school, and we have two departments, marketing and strategic management, and then these courses underneath those departments. We can see the number of responses for each course. We can see the average sentiment score for the comments that roll up to this course. And then we can also make comparisons across the courses as well as at the university level. So this reference line that we've serviced here is the university average sentiment score in our demo. We can also see that average sentiment score being surfaced here along the top, as well as the total number of responses. So really, we're encouraging users to kind of sink in all of this information. Like this is a lot of information that's being displayed all at once. And so this could really impact cognitive load. And so we want users to come in and explore this data first, understand what a sentiment score is. And if that's not apparent, we provided this info button that will talk more about what a sentiment score is, how we've calculated it. And furthermore, it'll point out that we're using a divergent color scheme throughout. Orange average sentiment scores are colored orange, so that's more negative. The more positive average sentiment scores are colored green, and anything neutral is going to be surfaced as gray. So we're servicing these average sentiment scores themselves, but we're also using a color scheme along with that to kind of highlight where we see positive and negatives. And so one thing we can immediately see is that all of these average sentiment scores are positive, so that's great, right? But we do see some that are exceeding the university average and some that are below the university average. And so if we think about this in terms of scaling this out, right now we're looking at a total of 1,000 fabricated responses that are in this dashboard. The real life dashboard would have over 400,000 responses currently. If we were looking at one academic year, we might see anywhere from like 179 or 180,000 responses. So there's really this need to be able to kind of drill down into those student comments as opposed to like surfacing all these comments all at once. So we want to find some themes and some things to kind of focus on. So by servicing just this bar chart over here on the left, we're encouraging our users to then drill into those comments. So clicking on at any level of the hierarchy will then surface the comments or the details associated with that level. So in this case, we're looking at a specific course, criminal law. And so we're servicing the details for criminal law itself at the course level. And so one of the charts that we're surfacing are these keywords. So these are those TF IDF scores that Geoff talked about. So this is an example of us dynamically using these TF IDF scores and grouping the text. And so here we've surfaced this info button. Users can read more about TF IDF if they're interested. And once again, we're using this diverging color scheme here to really quickly highlight which keywords are associated with an overall negative or positive sentiment score. And so in this case, we're seeing those comments that contain the keyword textbook seem to have an average negative sentiment score. So that might be worth exploring, right? So we're also servicing word stem frequencies here. Once again,
we're providing a pop-up to where users can read more about what's being surfaced here. Of note, we are surfacing in the tooltip what words themselves are making up this word stem frequency count. So if we're looking at understand, we'll see that understand, understandable, and understanding are actually making up this word stem count. And then finally here at the bottom, we see the total number of responses for this course, 55 of which have been flagged as positive, 19 negative, 3 are neutral. And then we finally see the student responses nested by the actual course evaluation question itself. We are using some emojis here to align with the sentiment so we can visually point out quickly whether or not the sentiment was flagged as positive or negative. And then we are including like instruction modality. So in the production version, we would have in-person, hybrid, online, so forth, so on. So I want to kind of show you how this works in terms of pulling out any themes. So earlier I noted that textbook was negative up here in this keyword list, and it also popped up as a keyword for this particular course. So if I click on this, that's going to filter the responses down below. And I'm really interested in these negative responses in this case. So I'm going to click on this negative, and then I'm going to highlight these negative responses. And if I start to read through these comments, then I begin to see that there were real issues with the textbook. And so if we were to offer this course again, then we would put the next iteration of it, we would want to consider switching to a different textbook, or at least that would be the recommendation, right? And so backing out of this, looking at things at the department level. So if I click on marketing, now we're showing the results for a different level of the hierarchy. And so now we're looking at the department level, and we're looking at the keywords for marketing. So just like Geoff showed you in that table, we're now changing the grouping here using parameters and parameter actions in this keyword list. And so we can see the word stem frequencies, and we can see the total number of comments, and so forth, so on. And then I'm going to back up, and I want to show business school real quick. And so this was the example that Geoff gave, and he pointed out Tableau being on this keyword list. And so I just want to show you a little behind the scenes on this chart that's being displayed here. So this keyword list is being filtered down to just the business school, but what I want to point out, it's really just the display that's being filtered. And so that's through these actions here. So notice we have some filters that are at the context that have been added to the context. Well, that's because these TF-IDF calculations that Geoff showed you on the back end, some of those include LODs. So if we want to filter down for academic year, instruction modality, or even like the course evaluation question, these would all occur at the level of context. However, these keyword lists that we're just showing for the business school, we still need the groupings to occur across all schools and colleges. So, you know, those actions, those basically filter actions, are not being, they're not added to the level of context. And so that kind of brings me to this view, which is this is exploring these student comments using keywords and these word stem frequencies. And so here we see the business school list again. Notice we're grouping by school or college, but this time we can actually see the keywords for all the schools and colleges, right? And so those are being surfaced here. And then likewise, if we wanted to see these by department in this particular chart, we can change the grouping. Those TF-IDF scores are going to recalculate automatically using in Tableau. And then we can see these keywords now across multiple departments. And we have other groupings in here. I think sentiment is particularly interesting if it'll load up. And so interestingly enough, I think Tableau occurs negatively on here, which if we pull this up, is just saying basically that they wanted more time in Tableau, there wasn't enough time spent on Tableau, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Another feature we have built into this particular view of the dashboard is being able to look for comments that contain a particular word or phrase. So if we type in group work, so instead of just looking for a specific word, we can look for an actual phrase itself. And so then here, everything's going to refilter for group work, and we're going to pull up student responses that contain group work here. So the idea is really limiting, because we have so many comments, how are we going to limit them, and how can we give the user a lens to be able to explore these comments? And before I kind of close things out, I do want to just briefly touch on the data source here, if I can get this to load up. I just want to show you what the data looks like here. So what we have is we have a wide file, this demographics file. So this is one row per student response, and there's a whole lot of demographics information, like the course that this response is associated with, the modality, whether it was a lecture or lab, the teacher, etc. Right? So it's one row per student response. And so let's just take this first one with row ID 1. It says, I loved how this professor made art history come alive through storytelling. We've established a relationship in Tableau at the logical layer. And so we've done that with a tokenized data set. And so here we have the tokenized data, and this is the data that's really being used to be able to calculate those TF-IDF scores and thus surface keywords. And so if we look at row 1, row ID, we see like a lot of stop words have already been removed. And so we're servicing here the word as well as the word stem. So coming back to our original screen, thinking about that data structure, most things you see here are coming from this wide data set, right? Except these keywords and word stem frequencies are being pulled from that tokenized data set. And we've established the data model in Tableau using relationships. So I think I'm going to wrap things up. We're about at time. And take any questions or comments. And thank you.
Thanks, Jen. We're going to suggest that if people have questions, that they go to the Higher Ed Tableau Slack, which we will post a link to shortly, just so we can get everyone out of here at 4:30, unless they want to stick around. So a few things as we wrap up. We really want to know what you thought of today's meeting. It was a little jam-packed, and we probably should have planned it a little bit better. But let us know by filling out the feedback form. Our next HETUG is actually a joint tug with the California Community Colleges. It's actually going to be one heck HECCC of a meeting. The link is in the chat there. We're going to talk all things transfer, sort of the idea of community colleges being a platform from which folks transfer into the four-year higher ed institutions. If you want to present or you want to yes, we are going to have a heck of a good time. If you want to present or if you want to nominate someone else to present, including those TC Encores that we were talking about earlier, fill out the Present at HETUG form. A couple of events that are coming up over the next few weeks. Analytics Day, as Ginny mentioned earlier, is on June 13th. You can register through June 3rd. The link is on the screen and in the chat. And finally, the Mass Higher Ed Tug is having a hybrid, that means partially in person, session at Worcester Polytechnic in the hat. I don't know. I can't do the Massachusetts accent. I'm not a native. In the heart of Massachusetts. We're going to call it Heart to Heart Connections. We're going to talk about all things connection. So some more TC content, talking about what we're working on, and just building some connections in the Massachusetts higher ed community. So all of those links are there. I want to say a quick thank you to everyone who was in the chat, who presented today, who shared what they learned from TC, and anyone, everyone who came here too. We really appreciate you taking your time to join us at HETUG.